Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates of finance. Questions will proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson. And I think today I'll start off with where we left off a couple days ago, just with a few more questions on the rental housing construction tax credit. So the minister announced in his budget last year that he was implementing a new rental housing construction tax credit. I believe it would cost around $37 million for the full year. Can the minister tell us how many new rental builds there have been over the past year that received this rental housing construction tax credit, and is the department tracking that?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the critic for the question. So happy to talk about the credit that we brought forward to help stimulate the development of more rental housing in Manitoba, both market and affordable. When we talk about affordable housing and rental housing in general in Manitoba, it's hard to ignore what happened over the last 7.5 years, which was a complete and total failure on the part of the former government to actually move forward with developing new social and affordable housing. I think about there's a project, an address close to here, 185 Smith Street, that I believe had somewhere in the range of 380 units, rental units, that were available for lower income Manitobans, participants in the Manitoba Housing, social and affordable housing programs. Well, the former government sold that building for profit and left us with 390 less units to provide to Manitobans in need. When I think about the homelessness crisis that Manitoba faced for many years under the former government, and I think about the number of folks that were left to sleep rough in bus shelters and around our communities, it really pains me to think about the fact that we took a building that had 390 units in it, again, just a stone's throw from the legislature here, right downtown, and they sold it off for a profit at a time when we arguably needed that housing in a really desperate way. And beyond the fact that they sold off that housing, along with other housing, and privatized it, while they did that, they failed to develop new stock and to support the development of new social and affordable housing. And I cannot point to a single example of them moving us forward in terms of ensuring that Manitobans had access, low-income Manitobans had access to the housing, social and affordable housing that they needed. So they really left us in a very precarious position, as they did on so many other files when it comes to the state of our healthcare system, the state of our childcare system, the state of overall our overall energy landscape. They just, in every single one of these areas, left us in a really bad spot. So I think it's important just to highlight just how tough of a position Manitobans were left in due to the failure on the part of the former government to do what was needed there and to protect social housing that we had. And I think it's really, it's a shameful record because, again, we know that and when it comes to social and affordable housing, and we hear this from developers, it's very challenging for developers to move forward in getting social affordable housing built. And really, this is an area where government has to play an important role in acting as a partner, and the former government failed to do that. So turning the page and moving forward to our government and the work that we've done so far in response to that, I'm unbelievably proud to be on a team with Minister Smith, our minister responsible for housing and addictions, who's done a tremendous job right from the get-go in starting the work, the important work of beginning to see new social and affordable housing investments move forward. That's thanks to her and our Premier identifying this as a key area of importance, and of course a key area where we need to make sure that just on the basis of ensuring Manitobans who are in these challenging positions could access in a dignified way reasonable housing. This was such an important thing, and she's done a great job moving that forward. We've also worked to complement her important work with this tax credit, which was the subject of the question that was asked. That tax credit will bring $8,500 to developers who complete the construction of a market rate unit, and $13,500 for those who complete construction on affordable units. That tax credit is available retroactive back to January 1st of 2024. We know that projects first need to be completed in order to get the credit. Most construction projects are, overall, these are larger developments, multi-unit residential buildings, take somewhere in the range of 2 years to get built. So we are, excited to continue to support the growth of more rental housing. We know that it's not only social and affordable housing we need in all categories. And we know that by increasing market rental housing, that will soften some of the stress in our lower income rental categories. And so our government's doing that work of advancing access to social and affordable housing while we expand access to market housing in Manitoba.
The honourable member for Midland.
Chairperson, if the minister wants to talk about affordable housing today, then maybe he could explain why he has charged $17,387 on the Spruce Woods Community Co-op, which provides affordable housing in Brandon. This leads to the minister's botched and sloppy rollout of his $1,500 education property tax rebate, or homeowners education tax rebate, that many homeowners didn't get, including, now that we've heard, the Spruce Woods Community Co-op. And unfortunately for this minister, that community co-op is now paying in tip payments an additional $2,275 a month. So this minister says one thing and then does another. And as we've seen, he's specifically targeting affordable housing units with his sloppy tax plan and tax scheme, which is individuals that are stretched to the max already, can't afford for their rent to go up, and certainly these affordable housing providers can't absorb the costs either. So today is really not the day for this minister to brag about affordable housing when he is targeting those individuals who are providing just that. My question was specific to rental builds, so I'm going to ask the minister very clearly if he can provide a specific number of how many new rental builds there have been since January 1st of 2024, since that credit is retroactive, and whether the department is tracking that. It's a very simple yes or no question, and how many builds?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Chair. I would ask the critic, she can turn to page 122 of our 2024 budget, where she can see the estimated full year value of that rental housing construction tax credit. It's listed at $36.9 million. As I mentioned in my previous response, projects are still being developed. So right now we don't have a specific number because, again, projects take longer than a year to build. So assuming, in a year's time, we'll have a lot more accurate number, but we've estimated there that the total value of a full year of those credits is going to be $36.9 million. And again, more to come once we start to see those projects be finalized and actually built, at which point we're going to pay those dollars out. So, that I think speaks again, the scope of that commitment speaks to the important work that our government is doing to help expand access to rental housing, which will ensure that not only Manitobans can get access to the housing they need, but it will also help to depressurize the market, and through that ultimately lead to less pressure on rental costs, saving people money. So we know that those investments are important. Just like the investments we've made to support lower rental costs through our renter's tax credit, which we have committed to increase back up to the $700 value that it was at prior to the PCs deciding to increase taxes on renters by $175. And we're making good on that commitment. We started with our first budget where we increased that by $50. We know that our most recent budget, we were proud to continue increasing the size of that credit. And again, we're committed to doing what we said we were going to do, which was to lower those costs for renters. And I am happy to say for the critic that those increases to the renter's tax credit are also going to benefit people living in cooperatives. And so we know that folks living in cooperatives had their costs increased by $175 a year because the former government saw fit to raise taxes on renters and folks in those types of situations. We're helping to make life more affordable for them through those improvements. And again, we know that right now it's an incredibly important time. And Manitobans are facing those affordability challenges, and so not only are we bringing forward those benefits for renters, but of course the long list of other really important things we've done to support improving affordability for Manitobans, like our hydro rate freeze, like our 10% permanent cut to the gas tax, like our personal income tax cuts. Again, our government has a record since coming in of doing the work of reducing costs for Manitobans in a huge number of categories, be it energy, personal income taxes, their housing costs. We're getting it done. And again, that stands in stark contrast to what Manitobans experienced under the former government, where they worked to raise costs on Manitobans, and especially on those that were struggling the most with, for example, renters who tend to be seniors, people on fixed incomes, when they raise their taxes by $175. We're reversing that damage. And again, that's a credit that we're proud to say is available to folks living in cooperatives. So the member wants to talk about raising costs for them. She should ensure that she takes responsibility and is held to account for the work of the former government in raising costs for those very same people that she's referencing in cooperatives, who her former government raised taxes on individually $175 a year. We're reversing that mistake that they made, and again, proud to be doing that work of making life more affordable for Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Just a follow-up to my previous question on rental builds. So as we saw this week, the Manitoba Bureau of Statistics came out indicating that the value of Manitoba's building permits for March 25 was down $309 million, which is 11% from February and down almost 35% from March of last year. In addition, Manitoba's residential building permits for March were down 16.5% from February and 10% compared to last March, and the value of non-residential building permits for March of 2025 117.1 million is down 2.1% from February and down almost 61% compared to last March. So to date, with these statistics, it doesn't appear that the tax credit seems to be working, at least not yet. So I understand the minister is saying that it takes some time for those units to be built, but just based on these statistics since his budget was released, how many units does the minister project will be built with that 37 million that he has set aside? Are we looking at 100 units or 500 units? You know, what is that number that he's projected for that 37 million?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the question, and I think it is important to highlight some really positive stats we are seeing here, and I got the number here. Housing starts in all areas up 24.8%. So we're seeing a lot of, I think, strong activity there, reflecting confidence in our provincial economy and the work that our government is doing. Again, building permits, which are something very different this month, are down, as the critic stated. But I think we all have a pretty good sense of what's happening over the last couple of months, and that is a lot of uncertainty tied to Trump tariffs. Trump tariffs that her leader has come out and said he supports. And so, we want to talk about, again, one of the biggest threats to our provincial economy and our Canadian economy. Right now, that threat is certainly the Trump tariffs that we're all deeply concerned about. And again, we continue to await some kind of summary from the leader of the official opposition or a member of his team as to what was really intended or what he really meant when he made those comments. We've heard sort of a variety of explanations. The one summary that he did offer in the House said, I didn't actually mean to say I supported the tariffs, I just supported the interference in our sovereignty. which, I mean, again, is not really a great explanation to begin with. And so he still has not clarified with Manitobans why he has spoken supportively of those tariffs. And that's a deep concern. And so, you know, the very heart of the question, which is why are we seeing right now somewhat of a downturn in those permits? It's because of that uncertainty that's been created by the tariffs that her leader supports. And so again, what are we trying to do as a government? We're working very hard to ensure that we offer the clarity and certainty for Manitobans and Manitoba businesses that our government is here to try to do and will do everything we can to increase resilience of our provincial economy and to make Manitoba one of the strongest economies in Canada. And I'm so proud of what we announced in our budget. We did some, I think, really important, we moved forward some very important initiatives there. Our commitment to a $3.7 billion capital plan being the centerpiece of the budget to ensure that Manitobans can get to work. Estimating 18,000 jobs will be created through those investments. Again, those investments are focused on building things that the former government, in some cases, said they were going to do, but actually had no plan to do. For example, schools for our kids or PCHs, which they never got done. NUPIC, which is an incredibly important supporter of our economic engine here in Winnipeg. Energy infrastructure. I mean, just on so many fronts, the former government failed to move us forward. This budget responds to the threat of the moment. Again, the threat that the former government and the current leader of the PC seems to support that threat. We're responding to it. And so we had that, I think, very important commitment to a significant capital investments, the biggest in our province's history. There was very important commitments made around advancing work on reducing interprovincial trade barriers. And we know that, you know, last week, our Premier went out to Ontario and made a very exciting announcement alongside Premier Ford that we are signing an MOU to reduce barriers between Manitoba and the biggest economy in Canada. That is, you know, I think a sure sign for Manitobans and Manitoba businesses that our government is focused on ensuring that we can, you know, create the strongest economy possible in Manitoba. More work to do in reducing those barriers, but we're making progress. And then, of course, there's a number of other really important commitments that we made as well that are all focused, I think, on really creating more business opportunity, building that confidence, and responding to the worry of the moment that Manitobans are facing. And again, I would invite the critic. I'd love to hear, you know, what her thoughts are about what he said and how she would characterize, you know, his support for the tariffs. I haven't really had a chance to hear her share her own personal reflections on that. I think that would be something that we would benefit from hearing more about because it's concerning to know that, again, the leader of the official opposition of Manitoba supports what most Manitobans view as the biggest threat to our economy.
The honourable member for Midland.
You know, I know this minister likes to play this game of going back to his typical talking points and attacks when he doesn't want to be transparent with Manitobans in very direct questions about what he plans to do with $37 million. Maybe I'm giving the minister too much credit where he didn't take $37 million out of thin air, and he actually had a projection of how many new builds that would apply for that credit. So maybe I am giving him too much credit for that. But I will ask again, and hopefully that I can get a direct answer because it is a simple answer or question that I'm asking. You have $37 million set aside. It's his budget. He wrote it. Presumably he didn't pull that number out of thin air, and that he would have had a projected number of new builds and new units that would apply to that program for that $37 million. So I'm asking how many he is expecting. Is it going to be 300, 500, 1,000 new units? How many of those are affordable units? How many of those does he expect to be market rate rental units? Essentially, I'm asking is what are Manitobans getting for that $37 million that he's set aside?
The honourable minister.
Thank you so much, Chair. So as I said in an earlier answer, and I think it was quite clear, I'm happy to repeat it here though, we're estimating $36.9 million in expenditures We've outlined that it's $13,500 per unit for affordable units, $8,500 for a new market unit. And again, at this point, we are still waiting to see. We're only a year and a bit in to that credit having been issued. I think the member knows that housing is not built overnight, that it takes upwards of 2 years for multi-unit residential buildings to be created. And so this is the estimated number. I invite her to, again, you can very easily work backwards there to identify what the values I summarized there on affordable and new market units, an estimated number. But this is the estimated total that we're offering here, and this reflects our important investment, again, in helping to get more rental housing built in Manitoba. The member did raise the question of transparency, and I think that does give us a pretty, important opportunity to talk about their failure to be transparent during their tenure. And this is something I've spoken to in this committee many times. And again, when we're talking about transparency, it's important that we, on the record, summarize the failures of the former government, because it's important for Manitobans to be very aware of what happened during their tenure when it came to a lack of transparency. And of course, we did have, as the member knows, an independent accounting firm review the decisions that were made. And one of the biggest takeaways from this report is that the former government was not transparent. Those are not words of, a partisan actor. This is really what this report summarizes clearly, is that the former government failed to behave in a transparent manner and to really have Manitobans understand our real fiscal position. And they left us in a really bad position as a result of that, a $2 billion hole. This was, again, something that when we look at what they did, July 28th, which is a date I'll never forget, when they went out and revealed their first quarter update. And, I think as the finance minister, the importance of that day, and I think reflect on my own tenure, about what it means when you go out to Manitobans and you're reporting on your fiscal position, and just how important that is, that moment, in terms of a moment of transparency and accountability. You're informing Manitobans about your progress to budget, and that July 28th report out that they provided distorted the facts. And, there's other less parliamentary language I could use about what they did that day. But what we can say is that this report shows they failed to budget properly. They engaged in a lot of decisions that constituted high budgetary risk. And they misled Manitobans and ultimately made a number of commitments after they created a budget that were not reflected in the numbers they shared. And why is that so concerning? Because, again, in addition to the fact that it was just plain misleading, they did this in advance of an election where they were seeking to do everything they could to create an appearance of being in a good fiscal position when the reality was otherwise. That, for any Manitoban who hears that and who sees this independently written report, that is super worrisome. And, it builds on some of the themes that I think we are hearing about yesterday and today in terms of the report that came out from the Ethics Commissioner, which I'm very eager to talk about.
Matters contained with the recent reports from the Ethics Commissioner are not relevant to the estimates of the Department of Finance. Could the minister please tie their comments back to the matter before the committee?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies, Chair. Thanks for flagging that. So again, there is a pattern of decision-making from the former government that, shows their lack of transparency, in many cases a lack of proper ethics when it comes to, being transparent with Manitobans, showing us where we really were. That is not at the standard that Manitobans deserve. We know that they deserve honest, transparent government that respects the rules and works fairly and works honestly. And that's what we're bringing after many long years of Manitobans suffering through the opposite.
The member for Midland.
Yeah, so there's another report that this minister fails to recognize, and that was a report by the Auditor General on the 2023 public accounts that confirmed that the restated surplus left by the former PC government was $373 million. Now, there is another report that this minister also fails to recognize as well, and that was a report from when he took over from government and he was in charge of the province's finances, that the AG indicated that there was an unprecedented number of errors and that he had not been part of an audit where there were that many identified errors brought forward for correction. So in the time that this minister was overseeing the books and the public accounts at that time, there was an unprecedented number of accounting errors. In contrast, in comparison to the previous public accounts report where the PCs left this NDP government with a $373 million surplus. Now, in the spirit of transparency, and I asked this question of the minister, and of course he didn't answer, so I'll give him another opportunity to answer the question today. What we've seen is a number of Winnipeggers with skyrocketing property taxes as a result of his sloppy homework and botched rollout and communication on his changes to this tax scheme and tax grab that this minister has now created, has created a significant number of confusion for Winnipeggers and homeowners across this entire province, individuals that are nervous that they can't afford their tax bills, individuals that were missing their rebate. In addition, individuals that were receiving a tax hike compared to their 2024 assessments specific to education property taxes, along with no rebate, along with a NDP political insert that claimed that they were saving those individuals money. I don't see how a $1,100 tax hike this year is saving that individual money. So that was certainly misleading and was also a slap in the face of those many homeowners that were struggling to figure out how to pay their bills for June. So I know very well, and the minister knows very well, that the province oversees those property tax bills that go out. It was the province that put that misleading insert into those property tax bills, not the municipalities. So the minister can stop blaming the municipalities for that, although I know he'd love to shift the blame with all the negative attention he's getting on this issue. So I have to ask a very simple question of this minister. How much were those misleading ads that were inserted into the property tax bills for Winnipeg, how much did that cost the department and the finance minister and taxpayers as a result?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Chair. Couple things that need to be corrected on the record here. The first was that the member continues to repeat this falsehood that they left Manitobans with a surplus. We inherited their budget. I don't know what's not clear about that timeline, but it is very clear to Manitobans that our government received and came into government halfway through the former government's budget, again, which was developed without clear planning, was developed without vision, and which was developed, of course, in a way that was intended to create a greater sense that Manitoba was in a better fiscal position than it really was. And so that hole that they left us, that $2 billion deficit, is real. And again, we need to be very clear on the record about what the PCs left Manitobans to deal with and clean up. It also, I think, is important to just clarify on the record here that the member said that the province sends out all tax bills. That's not true. And Winnipeg and Brandon send out their own municipal tax bills to their residents. Again, that's just an important statement of fact. We're talking here again broadly about the affordability improvements that our government is making. The homeowner affordability tax credit in Carman, which is located in the riding that the member hails from, is improving or reducing costs for 97% of residents in that community. So I have to ask, like when she goes to the grocery store and she sees community members, friends, 97 out of 100 people in that grocery store are better off. So, you look ahead of you, look behind you, look beside you, look all around, 97 out of 100 people are better off. So I really do hope that, she recognizes that for almost everybody in her hometown of Carman, and in that constituency are better off. And I think that's just the reality that is in place here. And so she does need to, I think, reflect on the fact that when you go back to her home community, almost everybody's better off because of those changes we brought in. And I think her community members probably would like to know why she's fighting against making their lives more affordable. And that's that affordability work, of course, doesn't end in Carman. We've done a lot of important work improving affordability in a number of key areas, including, of course, personal income taxes. I was very proud to bring in reductions to personal income taxes through an increase to basic personal exemption, to increases to our brackets that are bringing hundreds of dollars back into people's pockets. We were very proud to bring in a permanent gas tax cut, a 10% cut. And that was after a one-year holiday that benefited Manitobans, especially rural Manitobans and folks living in communities like Carman, who have to drive longer distances sometimes to get to work, to get to the hockey game. That's something that their team never did for 7.5 years. Instead, they gleefully charged the full max amount on Manitobans. And they did that during an affordability crisis, especially during the last years of their tenure. And almost adding insult to injury, they fought to bring in a carbon tax to Manitoba. The member may not have been there during the tenure of the former PC government, but she should know that they fought to bring in a carbon tax that was going to increase costs on Manitobans even further. And instead of actually taking any type of real action to reduce their energy costs, what they did is they later, after fighting for the carbon tax, decided that they were going to do something to try to appear to be working against it. And they spent millions of Manitoban taxpayer dollars fighting a losing legal battle in Ottawa instead of actually taking action. So they have a very confused and difficult record when it comes to supporting affordability on energy. That extends to their hydro rate increases. Again, the first time in Manitoba's history that we've ever seen a hydro rate increase be put forward through a BITSA bill where it didn't have the benefit of being assessed by the Public Utilities Board. That's how they approached increasing costs on Manitobans, lacking transparency, lacking a focus on understanding how it was going to impact and hurt Manitobans.
Before I introduce the next member, I would just like to caution everyone with the use of the term falsehood. The honourable member for Midland.
Thank you. And just to correct a couple things that the minister has said, certainly my constituents in Carman would like to see no education property tax on their bills. And my home community of LaSalle, with the Seine River double-digit school division hikes, many of us in my community and my neighbors are certainly not going to be better off under this NDP's tax scheme. So to clarify, that is my home community, and my neighbors and constituents in my home community are certainly not going to be better off, to clarify that for the minister. I do want to clarify one thing that the minister had said in his previous comments. Is the minister suggesting that the city of Winnipeg is to blame, and the city of Winnipeg are the ones that put the NDP insert claiming that homeowners would be better off with the rebate?
The honourable minister.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to say that we're working cooperatively with municipal partners. And, over the weekend, I had great conversations with the Mayor of Winnipeg, the Mayor of Brandon. And what we did is we worked together to make sure that we had a solve for those rare instances where somebody had not filled out their principal residence form in advance of those deadlines. And it's because we want to make sure that Manitobans get that help that they deserve and that they, that they merit. We brought in this $1,500 credit because, again, we're working to reduce costs for Manitobans. And proud to say that, again, we're working hard and working with our partners to get that done. And I noted that Councillor Browadi mentioned that, their team was working over the weekend, and there's good collaboration happening here to make sure, again, that those folks that ended up in this situation, that things are made right. And so if you are an individual out there that happens to fall into that bucket, and for whatever reason you didn't get your property, your residence registered as your principal residence in advance of the deadline, know that we're going to ensure that you get the $1,500. And if you've already paid your tax bill, you're going to get a check for $1,500. So this is a problem that, again, we're happy to have worked on collaboratively, because that's the way our government works. And again, I think about the absolute disaster that was the former government under Pallister in terms of the way that they worked with, any number of other groups. I think about the relationship with the former mayor of Winnipeg. Famously, for years, the premier of our province was not speaking to the mayor of the biggest city in Manitoba. That is absolutely bananas, given the importance of those two individuals and the need for those individuals to work closely together, to collaborate, to have the best interests of citizens in mind. So can you imagine a universe where a premier was just unwilling to talk to the mayor of our biggest city? And that's just one example of their approach. We're talking about collaboration and their failure to work with other parties in a good way. Manitobans all remember when the entire Hydro Board resigned all at once because of the inability of their PC team to work collaboratively with Hydro. So, entire Hydro Board resigns, not talking to the mayor of the biggest city in the province. That's the reality of life under the PCs, and that's what we experienced for many years. And as a result, Manitoba was held back. We're held back when you don't have discussion and communication between the premier of the province and the mayor of Winnipeg. That's absolutely bananas. And that's the way that things used to be done under the former government. Our team, we're going to work collaboratively and we're always going to center the interests of Manitobans first. First and foremost, their interests will be centered in all of our decision making. And that's how we're approaching every single decision. And so proud of, again, our ability to work collaboratively with the city, to be able to have those open lines of communication, to make sure that we work together with the best interests of citizens in mind. And that's the way we're going to keep working.
The honourable member for Midland.
Well, and as the minister knows, just today, AMM came out with a notice suggesting that the communication from the province and public messaging was unfortunate and disappointing, and that it is the responsibility of the province to take responsibility for their botched rollout of this $1,500 rebate. So it seems that the minister and AMM are not on the same page with how AMM perceives this issue. I do want to clearly ask the minister yet again, this is the third time I'm asking because he has not answered. There were inserts, political misleading inserts attached to property tax bills within the city of Winnipeg that came from this province and this NDP government. How much in taxpayer dollars did this minister and the department spend on those misleading advertisements that were included in the city of Winnipeg property tax bills?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Chair, and apologies that took a little while to get the information I was seeking. I am happy to share some information about some of the spending here that the critic is referencing. And what I can share is that relative to the overall spend compared between our government and their government, we are spending significantly less overall on advertising. And I think, that's, again, we can point to some of the decisions that the former government made when it came to self-promotion, sending out checks with the Premier's name on it, and so forth. Some of those desperate measures that they took, those are expensive. And we can say that for a similar campaign to the one that we just undertook, where we were, again, proud to notify Manitobans that and communicate with them about the work we're doing to reduce their education property tax costs. The same similar campaign under the former government cost 7 times the amount in terms of advertising dollars. So again, you have the former government's approach, which was 7 times more expensive when it came to advertising. We're taking a much more modest approach in terms of expenditures for communicating with Manitobans. And you can see how you get to $2 billion deficit with that kind of decision making. This is just one of many examples of the types of approaches that the PCs took that was fundamentally irresponsible and contributed to, again, a ballooning deficit number that they left Manitobans with before they were shown the door.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
I mean, I still didn't hear a figure from this minister of how much he has spent. But speaking of his pattern of misleading advertisements, earlier this year, Manitobans saw a number of billboards that went up advertising this minister's phony hydro rate freeze. And so I'm wondering if the minister can speak to who paid for that advertisement. Was it the Department of Finance or was it Manitoba Hydro? And if it was the Department of Finance, how much did his department spend on that?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. To the question, the Department of Finance, under the Communication and Engagement Division, paid for that advertising. And again, I think it's important to put on the record here that when we're talking about the campaign, the advertising campaign for similar type of campaign that the former government undertook, they spent 7 times as much as we did on our campaign. And again, we can see that's just one of many things that left Manitoba in a more challenging position. The critic kicked off her question by talking about misleading reporting. It does give me occasion to speak to what I think was one of the most misleading bits of reporting that Manitoba saw in recent memory, which was that Q1 report where they came out and said there was going to be no change to our fiscal position. Looking at the MNP report reminds me that when they came out, they reported in their Q1 that they did not forecast any changes to their budgeted deficit of $363 million. So let's remind the critic that they said that when they came out on July 28th, we were only going to have a deficit of $363 million. We ended up with a $2 billion deficit number. And as the hydro minister, when I look at what they did when we talk about their projections around net income on hydro, where they projected, I think, revenues that were far in excess, or net income far in excess of $500 million. I could tell you, as somebody who's become quite familiar with hydro's typical yearly net incomes, that was like 3x what we would expect to see in a normal year. And they came out on July 28th and just told Manitobans that, again, it's going to be everything's status quo. We're going to hit our target that we announced in our budget. And they did that straight-faced when they knew that we were experiencing a drought, when there was no possible chance that we were going to hit a $500+ million net income year at hydro. And in fact, where did we end up at hydro in that year? We ended up at about negative $150 million. And that trajectory and that path for water that year was very clear to the members opposite when they came out. So we want to talk about misleading reporting. I think one of the worst instances of misleading reporting occurred on July 28th when they came out and pretended that all was well in Manitoba land. And what we saw was, in fact, the extent to which Manitobans had been misinformed about where we were. So again, very important here in committee when we're talking on the record to speak with facts. And I think when we're talking about misleading reporting, the critic needs to, I think, really account for that unfortunate decision that her former government made to mislead Manitobans with that July 28th first quarter update.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Sorry, can I just request that we take a 5-minute break? Go to the bathroom.
The Honourable Member for Midland, would you be able to make your request on record, please?
Yes, just to take a 5-minute bathroom break.
Oh, it has been requested that we take a 5-minute recess, and all members are in accordance with this. The Committee of Supply will now resume. The Honourable Member for Midland.
Yes, thank you. I forgot where we were now. This year's budget increased income taxes on Manitobans by stopping the indexing of tax brackets to inflation, otherwise we all known as bracket creep. And as the minister very well knows, as inflation increases and as wage increases, many Manitobans will be bumped into a higher tax bracket as a result. This minister's budget directly states that he'll be collecting $82 million in income tax revenues from this tax grab. So can the minister please provide the number of Manitobans that this income tax grab will impact? I'm asking for a specific number as to where this 82 million is coming from. Are we looking at hundreds of Manitobans? And if the minister could please provide a breakdown of the number of Manitobans in each of those tax brackets from 2024.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Again, appreciate the question from the critic. The biggest tax threat that Manitobans are facing right now is, as the critic knows, the Trump tariff tax threat, which again, we continue to all wonder, why the leader of the official opposition supports the tariffs. Again, we haven't heard much clarity on that or any attempt at providing clarity today, but that is unquestionably the biggest threat to our provincial economy and to Manitobans and Canadians at this point. And again, our team continues to work for Team Canada and to fight to protect Manitobans against those tariff taxes that the members opposite seem to support and want to have applied to our province for some unknown reason. We talk about the personal income taxes. The changes that we brought in are putting a significant number of dollars back into Manitobans' pockets. On the basic personal exemption lift alone, it's $330 million per year estimated dollars going back into Manitobans' pockets. On the bracket changes, it's $160 million total per year. So there we're looking at a total of $490 million that our government is returning into the wallets of Manitoban taxpayers. That is an enormous sum that we're saving. And we're very proud to do that. And we know, again, after many years of the former government not taking action to focus on reducing costs, how important it was that our government delivered on that. Adding to that, the fuel tax holiday, we know the average person, I don't have the number here, but the average family, I think, saved approximately, a two-car family saved approximately $500 over the course of the year that we had that holiday in. And then beyond that, we know that that action brought the lowest inflation in all of Canada, and that had impacts in lowering costs across the economy. And we know that Manitobans wanted to see those savings be sustained. And so when that fuel tax holiday ended, we continued those savings by bringing in a permanent 10% cut. And that's, again, more evidence of our government's hard work to make sure that we're bringing the savings where it counts. The previous government, of course, did not do that important work. They also left us this giant fiscal hole, a $2 billion deficit. And we know that, a lot of that was due to decisions made by the former Premier Stephenson, who's, of course, now moved on, but also the former finance minister who took a lot of risks that led to that $2 billion deficit number, and ultimately showed, improper oversight in the development of that budget. And I would say that improper oversight and that improper conduct extended to decision-making we heard about yesterday, where the former finance minister was fined $12,000 for his role in trying to ram through a project that ultimately was not...
Order. Can you please tie this back to the matter at hand for the committee? The report from the Ethics Commissioner is not relevant to the estimates of Department of Finance. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Yeah, apologies, Chair. I was connecting a pattern of inappropriate conduct from the former finance minister who, again, was at the helm of the last budget that they created that left us with a $2 billion deficit. And I was extending that argument about his decision-making and conduct and approach to what we just learned about yesterday. But I'm happy to move on from that. But again, I do think that argument holds. And look, at the end of the day, going back to personal income tax changes, $490 million more dollars are in Manitobans' pockets thanks to the decisions that our government has made. Manitobans are this tax season feeling the benefits of those changes and are saving hundreds and hundreds of dollars for working class families. This is a huge, huge reduction to the tax burden that Manitobans are facing. Again, we know that now is the time to continue to do the work of lowering costs. Proud of the work our government has done. And I think we've got a very clear record of reducing costs, starting with 21 ways to save in our first budget. And our last budget, 2025, a beautiful list of 25 ways to save during this fiscal year.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson. So there's a few issues with the minister's response. First things is the former PC government was the one that increased tax brackets and the basic personal amount. That was done in budget 2023. The second issue is this minister promised to bring in indexing, and now he's abandoning that promise. And the third issue is that he's actually taxing more Manitobans by the tune of $82 million by bumping Manitobans into higher tax brackets and therefore puffing this minister's coffers with $82 million. The NDP want to keep taxing low-income people by ending the indexing, another broken promise, and we can keep adding that to the list of many broken promises that are coming out and being made clear by this NDP government. But I do have, just want to shift to another question here. In the short time that the NDP has jacked up taxes on landlords specifically, because it's not deemed a primary residence, how many landlords specifically have come to the Residential Tenancy Board to increase rents on low-income Manitobans?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Just again, have to make sure we set the record straight. The member made a false claim about the former government's purported role in changing taxes in Manitoba. And again, I don't know why there's confusion there, but what I can say with clarity is that our team received a call from the CRA after we were in government confirming a path forward on personal income taxes. That was not the decision of the former government. That was a decision made by our government. And, the Canada Revenue Agency, that work that we did with them to confirm that we were making those changes that our government was making, we knew, again, was important, and it was going to bring an estimated $490 million in savings to Manitobans. So again, it's very important that when we're in committee here that we speak accurately and that we put facts on the record. And it is a statement of fact that our government was the government that reduced personal income taxes for Manitobans. And again, that's made clear by the fact that we had to confirm a path forward with the CRA. That was a very important moment in time that confirmed our government's commitment to reducing costs for Manitobans. Again, when it comes to the costs of rental housing in Manitoba, the former government has a black eye when it comes to reducing costs for renters. And we know that for some reason, and it's lost on me, but for some reason they decided and saw fit to raise taxes on renters by $175. And that was, again, in the midst of an affordability crisis. That was after a long list or a number of hydro rate increases that were done in a questionable manner. This is their record. And again, when it comes to our commitment to reducing those costs, we started in our first budget to reduce costs for renters, and we did more of that important work with our recent budget because, again, we're committed to making sure that we make life more affordable. And there's a long list of I think, things that can be celebrated. And I would invite the critic to actually just, consider that these changes might actually be good for Manitobans and that we're actually lowering their costs. She can celebrate the fact that our government cut personal income taxes for Manitobans. This is a positive thing, and it was something that our government was proud to do. There's no need to resist or fight against it, and really just for the sake of being seen to do that. This is something I think we can celebrate together, that we've done, our government has done good work of lowering costs in a number of important ways. And I hope that, she sees that those efforts are genuine, that we've brought forward a number of important measures to lower costs, and our government remains committed to that.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
What I do see is this minister and an NDP government that repeatedly take credit for others' work. But I do have a question related to intergovernment relations. So the budget for intergovernment relations falls under the Department of Finance. So my question to the minister is, will the Washington Trade Office that was announced by his government fall under his department, and how much has been budgeted for it?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Chair. So I'm very pleased that we are reestablishing a presence in Washington after the former government cut that office and ultimately disconnected us from having a presence and having Manitoba's voice be heard. And you can imagine right now, boy, is this ever an important time for us to make sure that our voice, Manitoban voice, is heard in Washington. So clearly a serious lack of foresight on the part of the former PC government to cut that and to, again, reduce Manitoba's standing and role and voice in the United States. So we are proud to be working again to reestablish that presence through that investment in that Washington office. The funds for this are indeed going to be paid by IGA, but funds for this are held currently in our ISA budget. I can share with the member that ISA budget total is $550 million. I can also tell her that the costs associated with this office will be nowhere close to that total. But right now, sharing, glad to hear you support that. The very important, I think, consideration here is that we're still undergoing a process, and I think it's in our best interest to not identify any specific costs because, again, we want to make sure that we're getting the best value for Manitobans when it comes to the establishment of this very important presence in Washington. Again, something that we unfortunately lost due to cuts from the members opposite.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
As the minister's 3-month tax deferral is coming to a close, can the minister tell us how many Manitoba businesses have applied to defer their payroll taxes?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Chair, and appreciate the question. The measure we took, right out of the gate when Manitobans and Manitoba businesses were facing the Trump tariff threat, I think was very important. And what we brought in was a commitment to provide tax deferrals for businesses to help offer them liquidity and make sure that during that initial period when we were all sort of processing and working through the implications of the tariff threat that we were facing, that we were taking immediate action and responding to provide one tool, at least immediately, for businesses. And I remember very fondly standing in front of the legislature with our team, with an absolutely beautiful, ginormous Canadian flag that was put on the front of the legislature that I think everybody felt quite proud of. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. And I think that was a great moment for our team when we showed, without question, that we are focused on providing immediate supports as needed to help businesses work through the challenge that they're facing right now. Those liquidity supports were provided on RSD and payroll taxes. And what I can share with the members that the most recent number I have is that there's over 760 accounts participating. And that, we are seeing some significant uptake in businesses taking advantage of those liquidity supports. And we wanted to make sure that as that was coming to an end, that given the number of businesses who are leveraging those liquidity supports, that we continue to provide those. So that has been extended for 3 more months. Again, as a reflection of the uptake and the number of businesses that are benefiting from those liquidity supports. Again, why do we do this? In response to the Trump tariff threat that the Leader of the Opposition strangely supports, we're fighting on the side of Team Manitoba and Team Canada.
Order, please. The hour being 5 p.m. Committee rise.